Hi guys, Sigma just released a brand new lens for the Sony E-mount system, and check this out. It's a wide angle zoom, the 16-28, and I love it so much. Let's talk about it. So first of all, thanks to Sigma Canada for sending out this lens. I was on the embargo list. I had to sign a contract, and if you tell anyone about the lens before the release date, they will shiv you in your sleep. It's not true, but I'm sure they'd be very disappointed in you as a human being. So if you have come to watch a review of someone with the technical prowess of a Gerald Undone, the charisma of a Peter McKinnon, the pretty hair of Justine, well, this is not the right place. But if you are interested in a fantastic new wide-angle zoom lens that is an f2.8 all the way through, then you did come to the right place. That's right, this is a 16-28 f2.8, which is a perfect accompaniment to their already fantastic lens, the 28-70 f2.8. You get these two lenses, you're pretty much covered for anything. Now, if you're a photographer who likes doing cityscapes or landscapes, there are three things you need in life: food, air, and a wide angle zoom. And this is an f2.8 wide angle zoom, so you can do a lot lower light situations than, say, my other lens, the Sony 16-35 f4. This is also good for astrophotography, whereas the f4, not so much. And look at this right now. I am vlogging inside my car, because why not? I have a 16mm lens, plus, you know, the house is super noisy in there. Let's talk about the build quality. Now, to get a wide angle zoom at f2.8 and have it be 450 grams, which is what this lens comes in at, that is just a pretty lightweight lens for this category. It's solidly built. It feels really good in the hand. It's a very hard plastic with nice rubber rings for zooming and focusing. Oh, and by the way, the focus and zooming, all internal. This whole thing, it doesn't extend, you know, like the dog's lipstick. It is all internal zooming, which is fantastic for the way it looks, and also, you know, dust won't get in and out. Sometimes with the zoom lens, like I have a Tamron lens where I zoom and it extends and then comes back in, and I'm starting to get dust creeping down in there, and I don't like that. And more than any of that is this balances well on a gimbal, and you don't have to rebalance your gimbal every time you want to zoom in or out, so which I think it's fantastic. I wish all lenses were internal zooming lenses. And something else this bad boy has is a switch for manual focus to autofocus. The Tamron 17-28, which is a direct competitor of this lens, does not have that manual focus to autofocus switch, and for me that is worth the price of admission right there. I love having that switch on all my lenses, on my Sony cameras, so I'm really glad it's there. It's got a little rubber gasket at the end of the lens, which should provide some dust and moisture resistance. And now, since my neighbors are looking at me funny talking to a camera in my car, let's take this out to the park and go vlogging so those people can look at me funny. So look at us out here vlogging in the real world, in public, definitely not embarrassed by all of the people staring at. They're just jealous. They see this lens and they're like, what's that lens? Is that guy under an embargo? I don't know that lens. Yeah. You should be jealous. Anyway, this is a 16mm, and as you can see right now, that is seriously the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life, ruining this vlog, this beautiful, masterful vlog. But as you can see, the 16mm is quite wide. I'm on active steady shot right now, because the steady shot is not bad in the A7IV, but I still find it wobbles just a little bit, especially with these wide angle lenses. So what I like to do, as many of you know that watch the channel, is switch it over to the old Catalyst Browse to get that fully immersed gimbal feeling, like you're floating on a cloud. Here we go. Now I'm on the old Catalyst Browse, and someone's watching a soccer game in a house that is close to me right now, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, so I apologize if you hear his joy and happiness. We are here to talk about a lens, and the Catalyst Browse, as you can see, extremely stable footage. Now, I did have to up my shutter speed, and I did have to run this through the Catalyst Browse program, so that is an extra step, but I really appreciate how smooth this is. Plus, I only have to crop in 10% on Catalyst Browse, so it basically has the same framing as the active steady shot on the Sony itself, so this is the one I go with. You can always use the active steady shot if you want. Save yourself some time and some headaches in post. So here we are in the studio, which this lens is suited for perfectly as well. A wide angle zoom. Like right now, actually, I am on the longest reach of the zoom. I am on the 28 millimeters, you could get much, much closer to the lens and do a 16 millimeter, but I actually kind of like a 30 to 35 millimeter in my little studio here. So I'm using it on the 28 millimeter with the active steady shot crop, which crops in about 10%. So that's giving me about 30 millimeters, which I think is great. And also, if you wanted on the A7IV, you could do the APS-C crop and get even further reach out of your lens and still have plenty of the old megapixels for very sharp 4K. I'm surprised people don't make a bigger deal out of the APS-C crop for the A7IV, but I certainly do. But anyway, back to the lens, the price. Have I not mentioned the price? I haven't. I know what I've already mentioned, and it hasn't been the price. The price is $899. That's what they're telling me it's going to be. And now, by the time you see this, you know definitively it is $899, but they're telling me it's going to be $899, and that is bonkers to me because this was the second lens I ever bought for my A7 III. It is the Sony 16-35 f4. It is heavy, it is metal, and it's a good lens. It's not amazing, but it's a good lens, but I really wanted a wide-angle lens for my landscapes. So I went with this guy because I certainly wasn't going to buy the 16-35 2.8 G Master because my last name is not Rockefeller, and I didn't want my second ever lens to be that expensive. However, this was no cheap lens. This was like $1,500. And to think now you can get a 2.8 that has superior optical quality in my tests anyway, in terms of the flare. The flare is well controlled on the Sigma lens and not so well controlled on this. The corners look better. And other than the optical stabilization, this thing kind of loses to the Sigma in most regards, especially when it comes to light. That 2.8, like I could never use this thing for astrophotography, which I thought was a bit of a bummer, but now with the Sigma, you definitely can. But anyway, I mentioned the flaring. The fact is, this lens handles flare and glare extremely well in my tests. If you put a subject right in front of the sun, you still have nice contrast. It doesn't have all that ghosting. It doesn't get washed out. You don't have tons and tons of splotches and big purple circles all over the place, ruining your image. So I think Sigma did a great job of flare control. In terms of chromatic aberration, I couldn't find any. In any of the pictures that I was doing, I couldn't find any chromatic aberration. It seems to be extremely well controlled on this lens, and that is fantastic. You know, you're not getting all that purple fringing around the tree branches. You know, that's so great. I really like the quality of the bokeh coming out of the lens. When there are lights in the background, the balls are nice and round, and they don't have a lot of onion ringing in the balls. I don't like my balls full of onion rings, and the lens does a great job of that as well. Now, in terms of focus breathing, there is some, but it is also very well controlled. I was impressed with the focus breathing on this lens, and one of the only reasons that I would get the Sony 16-35 f4, the new version, is that you can have that focus breathing compensation in the A7 IV, which is a camera I own, so that is a big benefit to me, and also the extra reach. Going from 28 to 35, it'd be nice to get that extra bit of reach as well. However, that lens is more expensive than the Sigma, and also it is still an f4 and not an f2.8. And that lens also has no optical stabilization as well, just like the Sigma. But let's talk about the competitors for a second here. I'm going to leave the G Master, the 16-35 2.8, out of this because that is a very expensive lens. So I'm going to look at the Tamron 17-28 2.8, and of course the new Sony 16-35 f4. The 16-35 f4 is just like, you can get that lens if you know you're not going to need that extra light and you don't want to do astrophotography with that particular lens. You don't need the bokeh. Then okay, you know, maybe that is the lens for you, but in terms of the other two, they both seem very comparable in many ways, and Tamron does make a great lens, and if you have the 17-28, I can't see why you would just throw it away and get this lens. However, if you don't have the Tamron lens and you're looking for a wide-angle zoom that doesn't break the bank for your full-frame Sony, then the Sigma is 16 instead of 17, and it also has the autofocus to manual focus switch. So for me, I have a lot of Sigma lenses. I also have the Tamron 28-75, and personally, I'm always more satisfied with my Sigma lenses for the most part. There's lots of great Tamron lenses as well, but if I'm choosing between the two, I am going to take the Sigma 16 to 28, and I would also take the Sigma 28 to 70 if I had my time back. I mean, I bought the Tamron 28 to 75 before that Sigma was released. Well, I will say I have had a ton of fun with this lens. I will be sad to send it back, so maybe I won't. What are you going to do about it, Sigma? Send the cops? Probably. I'll send it back. To be able to walk around my city and get those big buildings in the frame that other lenses wouldn't be able to do, and to have the versatility of having an f2.8, it's been really great. Anyway, let's go see what that creep is doing out in the park. It's got great build quality. It's got that internal zoom, so if you want to fly it on a gimbal, you are fine to do so. The image quality is absolutely spectacular, sharp as a tack. This lens is so great for so many purposes, especially for someone like me whose hobby is landscape photography and also architectural photography. I like taking photos of buildings. Thanks to Sigma Canada once again for sending this out, putting me on the old embargo list. I appreciate that. You know, that way I get all the clicks and the views. Oh, speaking of that, affiliate links below to make me stinking rich. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I would also appreciate a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I'll be sure to answer it. I have the lens for a few more days, so let me know if there's anything you want to know about it. And we'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. I got to get out of this kids park now before people start, talking about me.